Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me and Peter today. We're going to talk about the most frequently asked questions about working with Stories, Inc. I'm Lauren Sargent. I'm co-founder and partner, and this is my colleague, Peter, who's head of sales at Stories. Hi, Peter.
Hello, everybody, captivated audience, and Lauren. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. And this is really fun for us because this is actually our first, session together where we've recorded something. And
right?
We're both really hams. We both like to act. We both like to be, I don't want to speak for you, but drama. There's some drama in our work.
You can speak for me. I'm a very, very dramatic person. For sure. No, excited to do this. I think this is, we obviously get a bunch of questions. So this is, I think, a really good idea, right? Every day, you and I, we talk to leaders in employer branding and TA and communications and DEI, right? About how we help companies create compelling culture content for candidates and employees. So it's great to share some of those conversations with hopefully a broader audience here who might be wondering what it's like to work with us. But, maybe they're not ready to meet us yet. Hopefully this will open the doors, maybe. Yeah. They can see how unintimidating we are.
Right.
We
just want to help. I mean, we
do just want to help. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I agree. I think it's a good idea. I like the format, and I like that we're focusing on questions that were frequently asked, and hopefully I think we envision that this would be very fast. So we're going to try to do it in 15 minutes, and hopefully it's as helpful as we envisioned. But always open to feedback if anyone would like to tell us afterward if this was helpful or not.
Yeah. So how should we do this, you think? You want to do?
How about we top five it? Let's list the top 5 most frequently asked questions. It'll be fun to see what you think they are and what I think they
are. Yeah, I feel like we're gonna have some symmetry here on what we believe. Maybe the wrong word. Anyways, honestly, one I get asked a lot here. We'll call it number 5.
Number 5
on the countdown. Is Stories an agency? Is it a platform? Are we a service?
Yes, I get asked that a lot. Who are we? What's the value we provide? Well, I have our deck up, so I'm going to share a visual here while you get us started. So yes, what does Stories Inc. do?
Yeah, well, we are an agency. I'll answer this question, my own one, right? We are an agency that we focus on employee storytelling. First, I would uncover stories from employees in interview that we conduct, right? Typically going to be about 45 minutes to an hour or so with the employees of your choosing within your organization. Then we create media from that content. I'd say about 80% of the content we create is video that we're going to optimize for whatever channel it is, you're looking to strengthen, right? But we also write blogs. We create photo libraries, social graphics, interactive content, right? I think we even at one point created a graphic novel for a company based on their corporate values. So.
That was like one of my favorites. I mean, I like all of our content, but that was one of my favorite projects. Yes. So good. Yes, that's what Stories Inc. does. And, I'll speak a little bit to where we sit in the employee storytelling ecosystem, which we love it all. We love all employee story content. But we really like our position in the middle here. So we are in between, employee generated content platform and a big budget cinematic movie about your culture. So in my opinion, it's the best of both worlds. High quality content. We really care about the audio and the video and the look and feel, and also the quality of the content. So we take a lot of time to really uncover great stories that are really helpful to candidates. So they provide insight. They're not testimonials or actual substantive stories. But then on the other side of things, like leaning towards we don't do anything employee generated because we're a facilitated process. But one of the things that we've taken from that player in the industry is the volume. So we're not just delivering one video, we're creating libraries of videos and content, a photo library of 300 photos, 10 videos that might be 15 second for an ad, 30 second, for Instagram, 2.5 minute for career sites. So we have a perspective on what works, and we know that candidates actually really love the content that we create because it looks great, it's not distracting, and it's also very informative. And it meets them where they are. So anyway, that's the value that we provide in addition to, what we do.
For sure. Well, that leads us into number 4 on the countdown here today.
Oh, you do a great Casey case. That's a great Casey case.
That's going over people's heads, I feel like, at this point, right?
I'm like in the 80s all of a sudden. I'm like hooked to the radio. I mean, you brought me back.
My name's Peter Jennings. I obviously have an affinity for 80s and 90s media personalities.
No, for sure.
So our next question, number 4 in the countdown, comes to us from Washington, D.C. Lauren,
That's right. Okay.
what do you think a great question is?
Oh, what do you think number 4 is? I would say maybe it's what makes a good employee story. That might be number 4. What do you think?
Yeah. Or I would say, kind of off that, right? How do you get great employee stories is probably.
That's more frequent. Yeah, that's what really, agree. Well, I have a visual there. And that's actually one of my favorite questions because, we get a great story from every employee storyteller every time. And it's really because of our process and methodology. And at a high level, it's absolutely rooted in psychological safety concepts and behavioral interviewing. But at its simplest form, it's just a really thoughtful process. And it does take time, but it's a facilitated process. So it starts with us preparing each person. Our clients pick the people, but we prepare them just enough so they're comfortable to meet with us. So that's understanding the goals of the project, understanding what their experience has been so far. There's lots of things that go into that. But the key there is that we prep them just enough so people are comfortable, but not enough that they're overcoached, because that actually doesn't create the best content. That's what we're after is really good, informative stories about someone's experience. So anyway, that comes from us, of course, scheduling and prepping each person. Mm-hmm. And then, during the interview process, we know who we're talking to. So we have a map. We've done the prep. We know the stories that they might contribute, but we also make sure that we're set up for a really great conversation. And that's really important to getting great content. So knowing, of course, who you are and being prepared, but being, prepared to kind of off-road a little bit too, where you go where the best stories are, the best conversations are. The best content is conversational. And, I know it's an overused word, but authentic, but it's true. Something that comes from a real conversation. So we think facilitated processes are, the way to get the best content. And that's how I would answer that question.
Yeah, well, and plus just like our project managers, right?
Yeah,
honestly,
it's a skill.
They're so good at getting great stories, making the storytellers themselves feel comfortable, right? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So it's the process. You're right. It's the process, but it's also the person doing the work. We cannot forget about that. It's because it's a real skill. And, that's intentional. We've hired people with journalism backgrounds, internal comms, recruiting, DEI. So people who already have that foundation, and then to go out and make people comfortable sharing with them. And so I'd say that's absolutely part of it. Also, I think another thing that's important on the facilitator, who that person is everyone at Stories Inc. watches so many recruitment marketing videos and
for real.
Yeah, so much. Peter and I can recite how people say certain sentences. We've seen some videos so much. But the idea is that it's important for us to know what's out there and what's performing well, but also so we know what's generic. So during a conversation with an employee, we heard a story the other day where it was like, we haven't heard that from a story like that ever. And so that's something that we know we're going to bring to candidates because it's super insightful. It makes the organization unique. So I'd say that's the other thing about, how we can get great stories is we know when we have one. We can recognize when we have a great one.
Yeah, I mean, it was genuinely like a big reason I joined Stories, right? One of just like I saw some of the content on our website, and one of the stories was a very unique story about a nurse, and honestly, it was like it was moving to to somebody that not in that field at all. So that I truly do feel like our project managers have a great ear for that unique story, for something that's really potentially going to connect and engage with an audience at large. But that one's before I started. I do have some favorite stories.
Oh,
That we've put together
me
more
too.
recently.
Tell me, what are your favorites? What I know one
Uh,
of them. I know one of your
yeah,
favorites, but I'm not
yeah.
sure if it's one you're going to mention.
No, it is. I think I think we've got this one queued up. It really came from an entire campaign with Intel that I just thought was great. Right, it followed sort of their athletes throughout their organization that have competed at different high levels and many different like interesting sports. And
Yeah.
one that I really love was from my boy Powell. A windsurfer there at Intel, and right, it just does such a great job of humanizing these employees at this organization, right? So you can forge that connection with them a little bit, and right, and sure, it just shows how Intel supports their employees to be able to pursue a lot of these outside
Yeah,
endeavors, and I really like that angle.
I love it too. Okay, I'm going to play it
Perfect.
right now.
I've been windsurfing for 15 years. I started competing professionally when I was 10 years old. I was looking for a place where I could still do sports and develop my skills. I have the engineering background, and I was always looking forward to use it in my professional career as well. And so it brought me to Intel. I was asked to coordinate a global conference for our customer, and I did my best to prepare everything as well as we could. And one of the presenters got disconnected from the presentation. It was a very challenging moment. I had to kind of improvise. It's just like this in sports. There are moments when you have to do your best and overcome a lot of obstacles. But in the end, there is a lot of great moments when you're sailing with nice wind and nice temperature. It's the same with Intel.
Love that. I wanna work with Pal, right? And also, I love that music is like it's kind of like got a Black Keys. It's got a Black Keys vibe to it a little bit.
I do too.
That video slaps.
And from like from a nerdy, I mean, I think we used 4 different types of filming and footage, which I also thought was cool. It may be, I think it's seamless to the viewer, but there's a lot of interesting techniques that we used and footage that we use that he already had too. So I was able to use, that's also something I'd say that we often get asked, just to, like what 2.2A to B is that we can take existing footage and integrate it with our professional footage too. So
For
yeah,
sure.
I love
We'll work with like internal teams, right? To if need be, to make sure that this is just going to be presented exactly how they want, right? So love that.
Yeah. So okay, I'm gonna throw one at you. Quick, think fast.
Oh, you got one for me. Okay.
Who owns the content? Who owns it?
That's an easy one. I don't even have to feel like I didn't even have to think that fast. It's you. Well, it's you. It's the client, right? The clients own all of the content we create. We're just going to make sure we're optimizing that content for whatever channels they want to share that, right?
Yeah.
Now, I got one for you though. You think fast.
Right.
What happens? What happens if an employee we interview and feature in a video leaves the company?
Yeah, it would have been fun if we tried to finish each other's questions. Like, what happens if an employee? I'm like,
somebody makes a sandwich.
Leaves the company. So they were asked a lot, but it's a really good question, because what does happen? This is a lot of a thoughtful process and a lot of time that goes into a thoughtful time, I should say. So I'd say this is what we say. We say that if you use an employee story approach, it does last a little bit longer than a testimonial, because if I'm saying I love it here and I'm wearing your t-shirt and then I'm gone the next day, it's a little bit disingenuous. But if I'm sharing a story of something that happened to me where my life was made better because of what the organization has done, that just rings truer, even if the person's no longer there. It's a thing that happened. It's something that your organization did, and it's a good example. So we often say if that person leaves, we always cover off on the legal things. People sign waivers. They're very aware that the organization owns their content. So that's a big check mark. That's no problem. But you really do need to think, first of all, is the story still true? Does it reflect your culture? Then you should still use it if it's still a good reflection. And then, of course, don't be a jerk. If the employee doesn't want you to use it, you should take it down. You should not use it. And then the third thought would be, if you don't want that person representing you anymore because they left under not great circumstances or for whatever reason, then of course you should take it down. But I guess, the good news there is that like we have so much other content that we can create and slot. So taking something down to replace it with something else is no big shakes.
Exactly, right? Like there's always, it's something that's great about working with us is your account team, they get to know, they understand your culture, and they know every single story that they've uncovered along the way in working with you, right? So they can pitch ideas back to you that could potentially replace that content, or just timely things, right? Like, do you have anything you're sharing for Hispanic Heritage Month, or because we have this great story from someone that we interviewed 3 months ago, or you can ask us, can we create content around career development or whatever that might be, right? And usually we can, based on stories that we've already collected over time.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say that's something we probably don't talk about enough would be this content on demand. So yes, we always have assets we're developing and we have the plan, but hey, I have an all hands meeting where we're going to relaunch our values in, next month. Is there something that you can create, or is there a story we can share for Gay Pride or whatever it may be? You're right, Peter. I'm just saying what you said.
I know.
Things about the work that we do.
Nailed it.
So I think we're at number one. I think.
We're at number one here. We got to get to the prime question here, right? Is like, how do we price things out, right? How do we build these project scopes, I guess, or whatever it is, if you will?
I think that's a great question. Like the different models of working with us is a really good question. So I'd say there's different ways I would talk about it. First is that there's really 3 different arrangements. First would be project-based. So we agree on the scope, we do that scope. There it is. It's a campaign. It's encapsulated. That's no problem. And you can always come back for more content. About 95% of our clients do come back. So once we start that relationship, we know there'll be more projects in the future. The second would be retainer, where we already have a plan for the year. We have money that we're drawing down. And the third would be something that would be every quarter, where we're strategic and we're planning ahead. So those are kind of 3 different ways we would work together. But how much does, how else pricing works? We really rely on 2 things. It's how many people are we interviewing and how much content are we creating, I'd say. That's fair, right? Is that how you would answer that question?
Yeah, and sort of the more content we create, right, sort of the better value ultimately you're going to get out of that, right, as it sort of builds there. But it also depends on filming style. We can film in so many different ways, right? You must have a visual for that one here. Oh, there we go. Exactly, right? Like, because we can interview in person. Those typically that's going to be 45-minute to an hour interviews or so, right? Which allows us to interview up to about 8 people in a day when we go visit an office so if we're going to do a half day at a location. But we can also interview virtually, where we send you a virtual kit with camera, HD mics, ring lights, everything, right? And a prep process to make sure that these employee storytellers it's all going to be set up properly. They're going to look and sound great, feel good. But what's important about that, right, is that audio and that visual be consistent across storytellers. No filming one person on an iPhone 9 versus a Google Pixel or whatever, right?
So important, especially for DA. We don't want to seem like one person's story is more important than any other. And the audio and visual is, I'm with you there.
For sure, right? And also, like, what I like about that is it captures the work that they really do, right? If you are a remote employee. We'll capture you in that remote environment with different angles, right? To showcase that. We've even gone to employees' houses quite a few times here in this past year.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously our in-person content is just the most popular thing that we do.
Yeah, and it's all over the world. I mean, really, our global work has exploded in the last 6 months, which is really fun for us and exciting and great for candidates because they get a more, holistic view of a company, which is really great.
For
So I think
sure.
that's it. I think
We
that's
are
it.
at time. We're
Okay.
we're actually even a couple minutes over now, so
Oh, shoot.
let's close this thing.
Yeah, let's close up. Well, this was really fun. I'm glad to talk shop with you. And thanks for agreeing to be on camera with me talking about, what we do best.
For sure. And, contact us, Peter
Yeah.
at storiesincorporated.com, Lauren at storiesincorporated.com. Happy to chat with anybody and learn more about how stories can help you guys.
Yes. Thank you all very much for watching and hope to meet you, talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.